Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukutali.
Good morning and welcome. This is Newsline. My name is Sonali Vanigabavage. What is heart disease and how does that impact you? Well, today happens to be World Heart Day. So we talk a lot about enriching life, how to do a good job and make more money. But do we really talk about our health and how to avoid getting a heart attack and dying? Let's discuss this. We have the President of the Sri Lanka Heart Association of Sri Lanka. He is Dr. Rohan Gunawardana. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, sir.
And thank you for joining us. It's a very significant day today because it happens to be World Heart Day, marked across the world. Like I said, the importance of protecting ourselves against a coronary artery disease is often not considered so much by the population, especially Sri Lankans don't really pay too much attention until they have it.
I think that's a very important point. I mean, until we get a heart attack, we are thinking nothing will happen to us, and we think that it's not going to happen to us, it's going to happen to somebody else. And it is only when you get a heart attack we realize the gravity of it. And by that time it's too late, because you already have a disease which is lifelong, which needs very expensive treatment options, both as interventions as well as drugs. And it's not something you can cure. So it's important to realize that the gravity of the situation, and because coronary artery disease is the biggest killer in Sri Lanka. It contributes to more than 40% of all deaths. Right? It affects young adults. You are talking about, in say 30 years ago, it was affecting people over 50 years of age. But now we are seeing people in their 30s and 40s getting heart disease. So that's a big major problem.
Doctor, the viewers watching us across their TV screens right now, perhaps are executives, managers, CEOs, directors, general managers of organizations.
If they get up this morning, yes.
Sorry?
If they get up this early morning, yes.
Definitely. And all of them have a stipulated life pattern, a schedule of work, as if you will. So they get up in the morning, have their breakfast and go to work, maybe have some takeout, and then this is the process where there is no time for exercise, there's no time for ensuring mental well-being, for example, engaging in some yoga. These are things that we often tend to sort of put to the background, and we're too caught up in our lives. That's what happens. So what are the risks associated with this kind of lifestyle, and why do we need to actually stop and take notice?
One thing is that as South Asians, we have bad genes, and that's a very well-known fact. So we have bad genes in the sense that we are more likely to get coronary artery disease. Right? We have small vessels, we are more likely to get diabetes, which is a major risk factor for coronary artery disease, and we are also more likely to have high cholesterol. Right? These are things, so the genes are something we can't stop, we can't change our genes. Right? Other factor is, of course, that men are more likely to get coronary artery disease than women. So again, we can't change the fact that we are men. Well, some people try, but it's not practically possible. Right? So basically those things we can't change, but there are a lot of other factors which contribute to heart disease which we can change, and these are things like bad food habits, right? Lack of exercise, smoking, too much of alcohol, and of course stress. So these are some of the factors that I think we can change. But we must realize that you're talking about the executive and the person who's working, but this problem with heart disease is that it actually begins in childhood. So all these changes in our lifestyle must actually happen in childhood, and that is something that we have to stress.
Doctor, what about when you speak of children, where exactly do the parents have to come in and inculcate good habits in the child which will make them healthy, as in a healthy mind and a healthy body?
Well, children are influenced by their parents and school, and of course their teachers, right? And they are influenced by what they see. So example is very important. So say for instance, and of course in our society the problem is that everything is a rush. So the child gets up early morning, has to go at 5:30 or 5:45 to catch the school van, and then goes to school, and probably the breakfast will be a pastry on the way, or a bun bought from from a fast food place. So this is the problem. So it begins at that point, right? Where we as parents don't give the example to children to say, look, you must have a good lifestyle, right? And because of the stresses that children are under, right? For instance, they have to perform at exams, right? They are at tuition class after school. They are at tuition class, and other factors of that with technology too. That there are certain major advantages of having internet and TV and computer, but moment children come back from the tuition class, they are on the computer or on their Game Boys or whatever it is, right? So there is no activity as well. So there is no the kind of the change in lifestyle that is needed, or the proper lifestyle that is needed doesn't happen in children. They are not aware of what they should be doing. So I think it's very important to address that. So as parents and adults, we have to give the example, and then we must. And it is children who, if you develop a habit as child, you will continue that as adult. But if you develop bad habits as children, again you will certainly continue that as adult as well. If you look at the number of obese children nowadays in Sri Lanka, it's growing. Right? If you just look at, say, O-level class children walking on the street, how many of them are actually overweight? Huge number. That's a major problem.
So obesity among children in Sri Lanka is an issue.
It is an issue. It is getting more. And in fact, we are finding now the children are getting diabetes, and that is also one of the major risk factors for heart disease.
Dr. Gunawardena, do you think that the Health Ministry also has a role to play in creating awareness among the people in Sri Lanka through various programs at district level, at village level, and at national level?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, they are one of the major players, right? In fact, we are working with the NCD department in the Ministry of Health. And in the recent past, the NCD department, the Ministry of Health, has made major changes, and they are really keen on getting something going. And there are a lot of programs which have started to address this issue. Right? But implementation is not very easy, because implementation needs the society as well. Right? For instance, now they are promoting a canteen policy, where they want to have good food in canteens. Right? But it's difficult to get those policies into schools, because some of the schools are resisting. The parents are saying, no, our children won't eat those stuff. Right? And even when there is, say a canteen policy where you have a good food or healthy food in the canteen, the moment you step out of the school, there's a fast food outlet just on the side. So there are a lot of practical issues, a lot of logistic problems in implementing some of the good ideas that have been brought about by the ministry. Right? I think, in fact, we are also working with the Ministry of Education, because we feel that that is a very important, because children are important. So we feel that by changing curriculums, by changing the way that children see what is good and what is bad, we can make some change.
Okay. So do we have to go in for modern ways of educating children on the bad habits, on ill effects of eating? For example, are we looking at examples from overseas, how they have tried to initiate programs like this in their countries?
Yes, there are a lot of good examples from overseas, right? For instance, now in say, if you take UK for example, right, they have cut down the amount of smoking in a very significant manner by legislation. So this is very important. Legislation is very, very important. So basically, you have to make smoke. Basically, buying a cigarette should be difficult. Right? In fact, it should not be accessible. It should be extremely expensive, and people should be discouraged from buying. So that legislation is very important that way. Again, in UK, again, if you take example as UK, they have changed the policy of their school meals that they provide. Right? And that has made impact. Right? And in the West as a whole, the incidence of heart disease is less. It's becoming less. In our countries, it's even more. So we have a lot of examples, but we need to carry that out as well. Right? So
definitely you're saying that the Education Ministry and the Health Ministry has a major role to play in creating this awareness.
Oh, yes, I think so.
Among,
so, yes.
Okay. Also, let's talk a bit about smoking and drinking in Sri Lanka. Although the government has taken measures to curb this by way of taxation, etc., this is still very much prevalent among the youth of the country, Doctor. And this also plays a major role in fastening coronary artery disease.
Oh yes, yeah. Smoking particularly is a problem. Right? Unfortunately, the smoking lobby or the tobacco companies are so powerful that it's impossible to get rid of them. I think His Excellency the President is very keen to stop smoking, but even he has not been able to kind of actually do the things that he's wanting to do, right? Because these are international companies and they are basically backed by the big countries overseas. So that's the main issue. So I think that's important to cut down smoking, and also it's important again now smoking starts in childhood. So you get addicted to smoking as a child in the late teens, right? So access to cigarettes for children of that age and educating them about the dangers of smoking at that age, if they are aware that this is going to cause problems, then they might not get into the habit. So those are important. Alcohol, excess of alcohol certainly is bad. Right? So again, this is something that is quite prevalent in this country, and we need to address it.
Right, Doctor, what happens when the killer disease strikes? What are the options thereafter?
Well, if you get a heart attack, basically your arteries are blocked, and there isn't blood flowing to the parts of the heart that needs blood. Right? So at that point, in emergency situation, you might rush to hospital. They might give you something like a blood clot busting drugs, which there are various different types, or they might open up the vessel by putting a balloons and putting a stent, so to open up the vessel. Right? But those are things which are done to get over the immediate problem. But that's not enough. Right? Because the process of the so-called atheroma process goes on. So even if you do that, the rest of the vessels are affected. So there is a case of lifelong treatment. So you have to take lifelong medications. You have to go to clinics often. You have to follow up doctors. And then if there is actual damage to the heart, that will cause problems later on. You can get heart failure, right? And you can get arrhythmias, like bad rhythm problems of the heart, and these can lead to death. People who have bad coronary artery disease need things like bypass surgery, and all these are extremely expensive. It's extremely expensive for the individual, and extremely expensive for the state as well. Because all these are very expensive things, and the little money we have for health, a huge bulk goes to treat heart disease.
Okay, so at state level, Doctor, now there are wellness clinics. That concept has been introduced by the government. I believe there are a number of wellness clinics across the country. But is this alone sufficient, or are you saying we need more measures to be taken?
Yes,
across the board?
I think from a state point of view, from the government point of view, they can have the wellness clinics, they can have programs to educate people. But the society must themselves realize that there is a problem, and they must get involved. So it's not a one-way thing; it's a two-way thing. So if the population, if the young adults, if the children are not aware, or they are not convinced, or they don't have the incentive to do something about it, they're not going to do it.
So how do you create the incentive?
That's exactly right. That's one of the things about the World Heart Day. The World Heart Federation promotes World Heart Day as a starting point for prevention of heart disease. So we need to on one hand we need to educate the people about for instance, what are good food habits, right? What's the type of exercise you should be doing, and about smoking. And also we must provide ways in which they can change their lifestyle. That's also important. For instance, if there's no point in telling somebody who has to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and rush to the bus and then work till 10 o'clock, that okay, you have to change your lifestyle, you have to change your job. So we have to have ways and means of doing that. Right? And similarly, that's why it's important for us as Sri Lanka Heart Association. We want to concentrate and we want to target the teenagers. That's the kind of age group we are trying to target. So we want to make the change there. If you make the change there, then they will carry that to the lifetime.
So, Doctor, you said that the World Heart Federation is interested in creating a culture of prevention,
yes,
as opposed to cure.
Definitely.
How are you going to go about doing that?
Well, now this year's World Heart Day celebration, which we are organizing on the 2nd of October, which is next Sunday basically, we are having a program at the Viharamaya Park. So we are having a walk. This is of course, remember, this is just a token thing, or in the sense that this is a beginning, this is a wake-up call. So we are having a walk, And after that, we are going to have various series of programs within the open air theatre in the Vihara Mahadevi Park, which will address various issues. We are trying to give an eye-opener to the public, saying these are things you should do, these are things you shouldn't do. So we are going to talk about heart health, we are going to talk about good diet, we are going to talk about exercise, the value of things like yoga and meditation for relaxation. And so we are hoping that this will kind of give a kind of how shall I put it, an insight to some people to come and start and thinking about these things and try to incorporate these in their lives.
So what you're saying is, Dr. Gunawardena, the importance of a holistic lifestyle is what we need to promote.
Very important. In addition, we started with the help of the Education Ministry. We had a national competition for school children on the theme modifying your lifestyle to power the heart. So we had a huge response, and we had a lot of posters from teenagers about this. So what the Ministry of Education did was they sent a circular asking the schools to tell their children to research into how to prevent heart disease and then produce a poster. So we are having this poster competition. We have already got the posters, and we are demonstrating these posters on that day, and we have the winners as well. Right. So we are trying to get the children to think, and some of the posters are very, very interesting, and lot of ideas have come through. So that means we are trying to get the children to think, look, there is this problem, you must know about it, and you must learn how to cope with it.
Okay.
So that's sort of one thing that we are doing. So we are hoping that this will be the beginning, and we hope to partner with the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and maybe organizations like yours, like Capital Maharaj, which have a lot
Absolutely.
of because you have the impact, you can make the impact, right? And even newspapers, our news vision publication is our official newspaper. So we want to kind of get together with everyone and the community to try and reduce the incidence of heart disease.
In fact, as Dr. Gunawardena mentioned, News First is providing the media sponsorship for the World Heart Day celebrations, which will be held on the 2nd of October at the Vihara Mahadevi Park. Dr. Gunawardena, what is the importance attached to introducing new subjects into the curriculum, into national curricula, such as yoga or meditation? Because we find that a lot of children these days are either not emotionally balanced, they're not positive in their thinking, there's a lot of insecurity. So these issues have to be addressed. And a lot of children then later on go into binge eating, they're insecure about their body image. And these are actual psychological issues which later impact them in their lives. So how do you think we need to go about ensuring that the child is a complete individual with a healthy mind and a healthy body by introducing such things as yoga or meditation in the national school curriculum?
Yes, this is a major problem, and I think it's a very complex problem as well, right? Because unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, we have an education system which is very stressful for the child. Right?
Yeah.
There is a huge huge pressure on the child to perform. Right? We have exams which they have to get through. I mean, starting from the grade 5 scholarship exam. Right? The parents are pushing children to do more and more. That is an issue. Right? And because of that, as I said earlier, children don't have time to play. They don't have time for exercise. They don't have time for relaxation. They are always at work. Right? And there are situations where by the time they finish their O-level, they are burnt out.
Yeah.
They can no longer, in fact, they don't perform well in the A-levels and because they are already burnt out by the time they come there. Right? So curriculum change is important. Unfortunately, we have had so many curriculum changes which have put more and more burden on the children, not less burden. If you look at, for instance, the health curriculum, right? The health curriculum talks about various sports that you do. Right? They talk about, say for instance, they say basketball team. They talk about basketball, for instance, and they say how many in the team, who are the players, what are the moves. But do the children actually go and play basketball? No. There is no impetus to actually do that.
So there's a huge void in our education system.
There is a huge void, right? And these things have to be changed. So basically, we have to get the child out of the classroom and into the playground and get them to do something. I feel basically that at a certain stage in childhood, every child should be doing some kind of sports. It should be official. It should be basically a compulsory thing, so that they get used to exercising and getting used to being of good health. And obesity is another major issue. Right? I mean, as a national, as a population, we think that it's good for children to be fat rather than thin. So when you look at Clinton, the main complaint is this child is not eating. See how thin he is. But nobody complains when the child is fat. Right? It is unfortunately that's another point. So again, these things must change. Right? So I think curriculum change is not a case of adding new curriculum, but it's a change in the present curriculum so that the child can have a more relaxed time and have some kind of exercise in school, and they should be promoted to have exercise after school as well, and have a as I say, less stressful life at the early age.
What do the parents need to do, doctor, to ensure that children's lives aren't stressful?
Well, they must change their own lives. Because it's by example that they are going to change their children's behavior. Right? So if the parents have a less stressful lifestyle, if they provide good food at home, good healthy food at home, right, and they exercise, then of course the children will automatically do that. Right? I mean, now the government has made lot of positive moves in this. Right? They are opening up lot of walkways and areas which people can come and exercise. Right? So there is a lot of impetus in that area, but then the people must do it. That's the important thing.
Doctor, I think about 10-15 years ago, when we were in school, we remember that there's a food chart where there's carbohydrates, minerals, vitamins, proteins, and all of that. So we have to ensure that the lunchbox has all of that. But in the present day scenario, parents usually, like you said, they either put a pastry and a soft drink into the child's lunchbox, and that'll be it, because invariably both parents work.
Yes, it is not only that. It's a case of now, for instance, remember that the food industry and the soft drink industry is geared to sell their products. Right? So they spend a huge amount of money researching on what is the food, what is the taste that the people will get addicted to.
Right.
So, I mean, unfortunately, that's the situation. That so obviously all of us like to eat something tasty that looks nice, and that's the unfortunately the bottom line. Right. So it's very easy to target children. Right. Now, long time ago, there was a time when tobacco companies were targeting children by sponsoring sports events. Now who's sponsoring sports events? Soft drink companies, right? The fast food companies, right? The instant noodle companies. Those are people who are sponsoring sports events. Right?
Yeah.
So that is how they get to children. If you see some of these sports events, recently there was one at school I went to. They were doing free sweetened milk products and instant noodles free to all people who are there, all children who are there. So they are obviously queuing up to get it, right? And this is all addictive, right? And not good. So this is how they so it's very difficult to compete with them, because there are huge amount of money behind them.
Dr. Gunawardena, you said that coronary artery disease is the leading cause of death in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
So this is a huge statistic when you say it's the leading cause. But Sri Lanka still seems to be unaware of the seriousness, of the gravity of this situation. So going forward, what concrete measures do we take?
Right. That's a big question. Well, one thing is making people aware. So that's the important aspect. As you say, people are not aware. Right? It's not a new thing. Even 20 years ago, heart disease was the leading cause of death. Right? But it's becoming more now. That is the problem. Right? And it's affecting younger people. That's the other issue. Right? So we have to make people aware of that. Make people realize also that they are not safe from heart disease. Right? I'm sure that if you ask anyone in this country, every single person in the country will know somebody who has had a heart attack. Right? But even then, they don't think say for instance, say you have a cousin or brother who has heart attack. Immediately you think, at that point you think, my God, something is happening, this problem, should I do something about it? But until that time, you don't really think about it, right? So it's that there's a need for people to realize that they can be affected. There's a need for people to realize what are the risk factors, and do they have the risk factors, and to kind of look at that point, right? So that is the starting point. And then beyond that, there are a lot of agencies willing to help, willing to get involved, and particularly for state agencies as well as non-government agencies who are very keen on trying to prevent NCDs. There is from the President, His Excellency the President downwards, there is a big move to kind of do prevention to go for prevention for NCDs. So the will is there, right? But you must also have the participation of the community and media as well to kind of look into this.
Doctor, the good thing that we need to keep in mind is that coronary artery disease is 60 to 80% preventable.
Yes, I think the very important point. It's not something that you say, oh, can't help. It's my genes. It's my fate. It's not your fate. Right? It's something that you can actually prevent. Right? And by preventing, you do a huge service to yourself and the community and the country. Right? You will live a better life. Right? You will have a healthier life. You will have a longer life, which is not just long but also healthy and disease-free. Right? You will reduce the amount of cost to yourself as well as the government and the health sector as well as the country. So there's a lot of benefit from preventing heart disease. Right? It's just that we don't realize that and we don't kind of work towards that. That's the problem.
Okay, so Doctor, we're on to our final 2 minutes of the show. Today is World Heart Day, as we mentioned several times on the show, and Dr. Gunawardena is the president of the Sri Lanka Heart Association of Sri Lanka. On the 2nd of October, the World Heart Day official event in Sri Lanka will be held at the Vihara Mahadevi Park. Newsfirst is the media sponsor for the event as well. Doctor, what final words do you have to leave with our viewers watching us right now?
Well, what I can say is that I will invite you, all of you, to come on the 2nd of October to the Vihara Mahadevi Park. That's the open air theatre which is front of the Nelum Pukuna auditorium, and then take part in these activities as a beginning to change your life for your heart.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Gunawardena, for joining us on this morning's edition of Newsline. We wrap up this edition then. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Newsfirst, Newsline.